Right, so we're moving on to the autumn series of 2014, and this particular series had has the highest grade boundaries of any season with these WJC Foundation tier papers. You needed 122 in order to get a grade C over both papers, so that averages out for paper 1 at 61 marks. And as you can see here, that means that if you manage to get everything right in the first 10 questions, then any extra mark you pick up beyond that would get you your grade C. So let's see how these questions pan out. Okay, so a fairly predictable start really. You should be familiar now with this type of question. Write down in figures the number 52,004. So the way that I tend to do these is work backwards from the unit number towards the larger values. So and 4, so the unit is 4, there's no 10, and there's no 100, and so there's no 10, no 100, 2,000, so that gives you 2004, 52,004. So there you go, that's that one. And then with this next one, no units, no units, no units, no tens, no hundreds, no thousands, no 10,000s, 700,000, 6,700,000. And we need to write this in words. So 6,700,000. Using only the numbers in the following list, and that's important because quite often I've marked papers where students have just picked numbers themselves. It's important that for all of these, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, all the answers are from that list of numbers. Two numbers that add up to 80. So if you're looking for two numbers that add up to 80, you're looking for the unit parts of their numbers to add up to 10 or 20. So you're going to put down a 0 and carry. So if 36 is the first number, in order to make that a 0 when you add it, you need to be looking for something that will add 4. So that doesn't add 4, that doesn't add 4, that one doesn't, that one doesn't, that one does. So 44 and 36 would be the first ones to try. So 44, 36, you add those, 6 and 4 is 10, and there you've got it straight away. So the two numbers that add up to 80 are 44 and 36. The number which must be added to 46 to make 83, well, the way that I would do that is if I take those two away from each other, the difference is the number that I'm looking for. So again, down the side of the page here, I'm going to do 83 take away 46. Can't take 6 from 3, so I have to borrow, and that means that I end up writing it rather than as 83 as 7013. 6 from 3 then you can do is 7. Sorry, 6 from 13 is 7, and then 4 from 7 is 3. So the number I'm looking for is 37. Multiple of 8, that means a number that lives in the 8 times table. So you're going to go through your 8 times table until you hit one of those numbers there. So 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56. 7 eighths of 56. So that's the first one there. And a square number that is also an odd number. So your square numbers are the numbers you get when you take a number and multiply it by itself. So 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 3s are 9, and so on. What you'll see here is there are two square numbers, 36, because 6 6 is a 36, but 36 isn't odd, so that wouldn't get me the mark. 81 is the other one, 9 9s are 81, and 81 is odd. So 81 is the square number that's also odd. Okay, so we've got this number here, 79,634. correct to the nearest hundred. So the hundred part of that is the 634. So if we're writing that correct to the nearest 100, the answer is either going to be 79,600 or 79,700, because the number's in between those two. Because it's only 34, it means it's closer to 600 than 700, so we would write that as 79,600. To the nearest thousand, the 9 is in the thousands column, so it's either going to be 79,000 or 80,000. Because the rest of the number is bigger than 500, it's going to make it nearer to 80,000 than it is to 79,000. So it's 80,000 we're looking for there. Write on all the factors of 12. So for this one, factors mean numbers that divide into 12 exactly. Or another way of thinking of it is which times tables does the number 12 appear in. So it appears in the 1 and the 12 times table. It appears in the 2 and the 6 times table. And it also appears in the 3 and the 4 times table. So that those 6 digits all divide exactly into 12. And the final question, a packet of paper costs £2.97. How many packs of paper can be bought for £15? So you could do a very complicated division here, which is 15 divided by 297, which would be a bit challenging for the very first question on a foundation tier. That's not what they're looking for you to do. What they're looking for you to do here is to approximate that to £3. So £2.97 is approximately 3. And then we want to see how many times 15 divides by 3. So 15 divided by 3 is 5. So there are going to be 5 packs of paper that you can buy. So the way that the marks are spread through that question, where there's only one mark, it's dead easy. Those are worth 1 each. You've either got them right or you've got them wrong. Those are B marks. With this one, there are 2 marks, 2 B marks. 1 B mark if you got most of them right and all of it, and no wrong ones. And the second one if you got them all right with no wrong ones. And for this one of the marks is for the approximation and the other mark is for getting the right answer. Write down the value of the 7 in the number. So again, working backwards, 2, 62, 762, 2,762, 12,762. So the 7, we've said it several times there, is 700. The common mistake there is to write down hundreds. Because it's in the hundreds column, yes, but because the digit is a 7, its value is 700. Write down a prime number between 20 and 30. So prime numbers are numbers that only have themselves and 1 as factors. So again, that means they only live in their own times tables, the 1 times table and their own times table. The only even prime number is 2, so any other even number isn't going to be prime because 2 goes into it. So we can eliminate all the even numbers between 20 and 30 and focus on the odd numbers. Well, 21 isn't prime because 7 and 3 go into it. 22 is even. 23 is a prime number. The only numbers that divide into 23 are 1 and 23. 25 isn't because 5 goes into it. 27 isn't because 9 and 3 go into it. 29 is another prime number. So you only have to give one of those to get the mark, but either of those would be correct. Now, once on every paper or once on every pair of papers that you set, a paper 1 or a paper 2, there will be a question where they're going to give you mark for how you explain your answer. And the setup is a line like that. You will be assessed on the quality of your written communication in this part of the question. So there are 5 marks for this, but 2 of those are for how you explain your method. So you could get the maths all perfectly right, but only get 3 marks if you're not explaining what you're doing. So let's take a look at the context. Disha has £6. She buys some pineapples at 80 pence each, and there's 40 pence left over. How many pineapples did she buy? Okay, so the first thing is that we need to be working in the same units. So because everything's in pence, and we're not allowed to use a calculator, it's going to be easier to turn that £6 into pence. So that's the first step. Now we know that she hasn't spent all of that £6 on pineapples because she's got 40 pence left over. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to work out how much she spends on pineapples. And to do that, we're going to take the 40 pence change from the £6. So 600 pence less 40 pence is 560 pence on pineapples. Now we know that each of the pineapples cost 80 pence. So if we see how many 80 pences fit into that, then that's going to tell us how many pineapples she has bought. So I mean, there's different ways of doing it. You could just total up your 80s, or you could do a division. Doesn't matter how you do it. I'm going to go division. So number of pineapples bought will be 560 divided by 40. Now 560 divided by 40 is the same as 56 divided by 4, because both of those numbers you can divide by 10. So 56 divided by 4, not by 40, it's 80. It's 80 pence, sorry. Don't know where that 40 came from. So that's going to be the same as 56 divided by 8. And I know my 8 times table, 7 eighths of 56. So that's going to equal 7 pineapples. Okay, so for that question then, there's going to be 1 mark for the site of that, 1 mark for either 23 or 29. And then for this one, there are 2 marks, Q marks they're called, for explaining what you've done, okay, which is what I'm doing with my words there. And then there are going to be 3 marks, 1 mark for working out how much she spends on pineapples, 1 mark for showing that you're going to divide, and 1 mark for the answer of 7. So for that first page, there are a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. There are 19 marks available on that first page. So if we go back to the original spread, just getting everything right in the first 2 questions, and you're going to be in the grading zone of already getting a G. Okay, so the next question now, so I'm going to refocus that a bit better, is a formula question. So we've got cost of hire, number of days, delivery charge are the variables in that formula. They're the things that we can change the value of. So Jack hired a skip for 5 days, so that's the number of days, and the cost was £250. What was the delivery charge? So the 3 variables I've underlined there: number of days, cost, delivery charge. So you write those into the formula in the same place that they are given to you. You can't move the values around within the formula. So the cost of hire was 250. The number of days was 5. The times 40 is there in the formula, plus a delivery charge, which we don't know, so I'm going to call it D for delivery charge. So I can work this bit out, 5 times 40. As 200, and hopefully now by looking at that you can see that, alright, what that's basically saying, what have I got to add to 200 to give me a value of 250? And the answer is, hopefully you'll see, 50. So the delivery charge must be £50. Second part, which is usually a bit more involved. Jack hired a skip for 350, so that's the cost of hire. This time they're giving the delivery charge, which is £30, and how many days is what we're trying to work out. So let's put that into the formula. Cost of hire 350. Number of days, I don't know, I'll call it N, times 40 plus the delivery charge, which was 30. So this one now is a bit more work to get at finding out what that N is. The first thing I need to do is get rid of that plus 30 there. So we're going to use the rules of solving equations. In order to get rid of that plus 30, I got to do the opposite of adding 30, which is taking 30 away. But to keep the balance of the equation right, if I'm taking 30 off that side, I have to do the same to the other side. So on this side of the equal sign, I now get 350 take away 30, and on this side I'm left with that because I've taken the 30 off. 350 divided by 30 is 320, and now to get the N on its own, I've got to do the same thing again. I've got to get rid of something else. I've got to get rid of a times by 40. To get rid of a times by 40, I've got to do the opposite of times by 40, which is dividing by 40. If I divide that side by 40, I've got to do the same to that side as well. So 320 divided by 40 equals N. The N's on its own now because I've divided by 40. 320 divided by 40 is the same as 32 divided by 4, because 10 goes into them both. 32 divided by 4 is 8, so the number of days is 8 days. So the way the marks will be spread for that question, you get a method mark for substituting incorrectly, and then an answer mark for working it out. And similarly here, you get a method mark for substituting incorrectly, and an answer mark for getting N as 8. Question 4. At a sporting event, Rian carried out a survey to find out from which continent each athlete had come. Her results are shown below. So whenever you're given a table, the first thing I suggest you do is to pick a column in it to make sure you can make sense of the context. So let's pick Africa. That column there is saying that 30 of the athletes came from the continent of Africa. 70 of the athletes came from the continent Americas. Draw a pictogram to represent the above information using 4 squares to represent 20 athletes. So if 4 squares represent 20, 1 square will represent a quarter of that, which would be 5 athletes. Okay, so Europe, 40 athletes. One little group of 4 is 20, so I'm going to need 2 lots of that. So 1 is 20, 40. Africa, 30. Well, that will be 20, so I need another 10, which will be half a group. Asia, 35, 20, and then I need another 15, so that would be 30 and another 5, 35. The Americas will be 70, 20, 40, 60 and another 10, and Australasia 25, 25. On the centimetre squared paper on the next page, draw a bar chart to represent the above information. So there are 4 marks for this, and what you have to do in order to earn those 4 marks is, first of all, make sure that you choose a scale which fills the paper they've given you. So if you're going to go up one square as 10, we need to go up as far as 70. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 will take you to there. So your graph is only going to be in this bottom bit of the graph paper. You're not going to get a mark for that. So we're going to go up in 2 squares to be 10. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Now you're also going to be, in order to earn another mark, you need to label your graph axes so that anybody looking at them will understand the context of it. So in this particular question, the context is these numbers are the number of athletes from these countries. So you can either use the mathematical word frequency, or you can say number of athletes. So either of those would be correct. Now, going along the bottom of your axes are going to be the continents. So the first continent is going to be Europe, and that is going to be 40. So you use a ruler, and when you're doing this in the exam, make sure that you use a pencil so that if you make a mistake, you can rub it out. So Europe is 40. The next one is Africa, which is 30. Then we've got Asia, which is 35. Americas, which is 70. And finally Australasia, which is 25. And then we also need to label this axis, and this axis is continent. So those are 4 marks there. So there's 1 mark for the axes, there's 1 mark for filling the page, so for a sensible scale, and then 2 marks for bars the correct height. So there's your 4 marks for that. The mode is the data that is the most frequent, mode most. So it's this one here. The common mistake is to write the mode as 70. 70 tells you which one of these is the most frequent. The mode is Americas. And then finally, the probability that an athlete chosen at random from this group comes from Africa. So when you're writing probability, the top value, you always write it as a fraction, the top value is the number of occurrences of this particular probability. So we're talking about Africa, coming from Africa, and 30 of them come from Africa. And then the number on the bottom is the total of the groups. The total of the group is the total number of athletes altogether. Sometimes the question will tell you how many there are. This one doesn't, so we've got to find it by adding up the total number of athletes there. So when I add those up, I get 70 and 30 is 100, 140, 175, 180, and 20 is 200. So the number on the bottom is 200. So getting that marked, you'll have 1 mark for Europe, 1 mark for Africa and Asia together, 1 mark for the Americas, and 1 for Australasia. I've explained to you how you get the 4 marks for the graph, 1 mark for the mode, and then here 1 mark for 30, 1 mark for 200. Okay, so we got all that right, we're on for an F. Next question. 3 identical rectangles, each measuring 7 centimeters by 3 centimeters, are placed together to make the shape shown in the diagram. So each of these 3 rectangles are 3 by 7. Calculate the perimeter of the shape. Now perimeter is distance all the way around the outside of the shape. So if you can imagine, you're going to start there and you're going to walk all the way around the outside of the shape and back to the start, you will get the distance that you've travelled is called the perimeter. Now this question is worth 3 marks. So if you just write down an answer here and you've missed out one of the sides, then you're in danger of getting 0. It's important with a question that's worth more than 1 mark that you put some effort into showing what you're doing. So with this one, let's put in all the missing sides. So that one's 7, that one must be 3 because it's that rectangle stood on its end, which means that is 7 to there. And then this bit here, well, if it's 7 from there to there and that one's 3, it means that that missing side there is 4, and that's one of the things they're looking to see that you've worked out. So that's 4, that's 3, that's 7, 3, that's the same as there, 4, and that is 7. So I'm showing some workings out now. Now I'm going to show that in order to work at the perimeter, I need to add all of those together. So if I start there and go in that direction, I'm going to have a 7 plus a 3 plus a 7, a 4, a 3, a 7, a 3, a 4, a 7, and it's important to remember the 3 that you're given there as well. So when we add those together, I get 10, 17, 21, 24, 31, 34, 38, 38, 45, 48. Now it's not asking you for the units, but if you know them, it's worth you putting them in. It's a distance, and its units are centimeters because that's what the measurements are given in. But there's no marks for that, so if you just wrote down 48, you would get the 3 marks. Okay, calculate the area of the shape. Now with this one, and again, one of the questions over 2 papers will specifically have a mark for the correct units. So write down the units of your answer. The units of area are either going to be centimeters squared, millimeters squared, units squared basically. If the units of our shape are in centimeters, the units of the answer are in centimeters squared. Now even if you can't remember how to do it, but you know that, that's going to earn you a mark. If you just worked out a number and didn't put that, you get 2 out of 3. So it's important that where that is, you put that in. Now, what you've got here are 3 identical rectangles, and you need to know excuse me, you need to know how to find the area of a rectangle. Hopefully you do. The area of a rectangle is length times width, so that's going to be 3 times 7, which is 21. So the area of one rectangle is 21, and you have got 3 of them. So the area is going to be 21 times 3, which is 63. So the area is 63 square centimeters. 6 marks for that question. 1 mark of the question will be for showing that that missing side is 4. Then you're going to have 1 mark for the method of adding all your sides together, and 1 mark for the answer of 48. For this one, you're going to have 1 mark for the method of calculating an area of a rectangle, 1 mark for 63, and 1 mark for correctly writing down the units. Okay, so if we got all that right, we're on to a grade E. Just have a quick blow my nose. So we're on to coordinate question here. So when you're writing a coordinate, the first number is always the x coordinate, the second number is always the y coordinate. So it just follows alphabetically. Write down the coordinates of the point P. So this is the point P. So the x coordinate is -3 across, and the y coordinate is 1. So -3, 1. Write down the coordinates, the point R lies on the line PQ. So it's going to be on that line somewhere. The y coordinate of R is 4. What is the x coordinate? So the y coordinate is 4. So on the line it's that point there. So if you read down to get the x coordinate, you will see the x coordinate is 3. The coordinates of the point 1, 3 add up to 4. So that point there has got 1 and 3, which adds up to 4. Write down the coordinates of the point on PQ, which add up to 1. So if we go down that line, if we take the point Q for example, those add up to 10. 5 and 5 is 10. 4 add 3 is 7. 3 add 1 is 4. So as we're going down the line, the number is getting smaller. That one there would be 2.5 and 0. This one here is -1 add 2. So 2 add -1 actually is 1. So that's what we're looking for there, is the x coordinate -1 and the y coordinate 2. When you add those together, you get 1. So for that question, 1 mark, 1 mark. And how do they do? So what's this, question number 6? And for this one, there's 1 mark if you put any pair of coordinates there that add up to 1, and 1 mark if they are the correct ones. Question 7. 3 children share 20 cubes. Melanie takes 25% of the cubes. John and Denise share the rest of the cubes. John gets more cubes than Denise. What is the greatest number of cubes that Denise could get? So let's deal with Melanie first of all. 25%. Hopefully you know that's the same as a quarter. Hopefully quarter of 20 is 20 divided by 4 is 5. So hopefully you're happy seeing that a quarter of those, if you knock out a quarter, that's 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters. So Melanie gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that leaves 15 cubes between John and Denise. Now, John gets more cubes than Denise, so John could have 14 of them to Denise's 1, and that would satisfy that. John could have 13 to Denise's 2. What is the greatest number of cubes that Denise could get? So what that is saying is, what's his name? John is only going to have 1 more than Denise. So that would mean John only gets 1 more cube than Denise. So we're dividing 15 up into 7 and 8. 7 and 8 are 15. John gets more. So for that to be the case, that's what Denise gets. That's what John gets. That's the most she can get. Okay, so there's 1 mark there for getting the 5 cubes. and then 1 mark for showing that they're going to share 15 between them, and 1 mark for correctly saying that Denise is going to get 7. Question 8. Gail buys 8 biros for £3. 3 of them are black, the others are red. Each red biro costs 45 pence. What is the cost of 1 black biro? So again, with this question now, we're mixing pounds and pence. So let's turn £3 into 300 pence. If she buys 8 biros, if 3 of them are black, there must be 5 red biros. And each of those cost 45 pence. So the total cost of red biros or red pens, 5 of them each costing 45. Non-calculated paper, remember. 5 5s are 25, 5 down, carry 2. 4 5s are 20, add the 2, £2.25. So the red pens cost £2.25. She spent £3. So the total cost of the 3 black pens would be total cost 300 less the 225, which is 75 pence. So if 3 of them cost 75, 1 black pen costs 75 divided by 3, which is 25 pence. So for that, there's 1 mark for 5 red biros, there's 1 mark for the £2.25, 1 mark for the 75 pence, and 1 mark for the 25 pence. So the total for that page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 marks for that page. Okay, if we've got everything right so far, then we've got ourselves a grade D. And we're now pushing for the C grade. So simplify that. Now when I teach this, basically what I say is that the sign in front of each part of these are attached to the algebra that comes after it. So that plus there is attached to the 5y. That negative there is attached to the 3x. That minus 2 is attached, so the minus is attached to the 2y. And this one, there's nothing in front of it, means there's a plus there. Now, really like pig's ear of that. It's too small, so let me write it out again. So that's the original. So if I just get a different colour from somewhere, I'm saying that that's a plus, that's an x term, and that negative is attached to that x term there. And then I have the negative 2 and the plus 5. So those are together. So this is saying that you're at plus 4 on an x number line and you're going down 3. So you're starting at plus 4 and you're going down 3, you're going to end up at 1x. And this one is saying you're starting at negative 2 and you're adding 5. So on your number line, and there's no harm you on the back of your exam paper or anywhere down there, it doesn't matter, putting a little number line if it helps you. So in that direction we got the plus, and then down here we got the negative. So what have we got? So as I said, we started off at plus 4 and we've gone down 3, 1, 2, 3 to give me 1x. And then for this one I'm starting at negative 2 and I'm adding 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I end up at plus 3y. So there's 2 marks for that, 1 mark for the x value, 1 mark for the y value. Solving an equation, we've done this with the skipped question a little bit earlier. The first thing we need to do is to get rid of the take 6. We do that by doing the opposite of taking 6, which is adding 6. If I add 6 to that side, I have to add 6 to the other side as well. Adding 6 to this side means I'm just left with 5t. Adding 6 to the other side means that I get that. So 5t, I can evaluate that now, is 15. Now the 5 and the t are joined by a times. We don't write it in algebra because it's confusing, it looks like an x. So in order to get the t on its own, I've got to do the opposite of timesing by 5. The opposite of timesing by 5 is dividing by 5. If I divide that side by 5, I've got to do the same to this side. And in algebra, divide by, we tend to write like that rather than using the division sign. 15 divided by 5 is 3. There'll be 1 mark there for getting down to the 5t equals 15, and 1 mark for the final answer. Part C. Find the value of 2p plus 5q when p equals negative 3 and q equals 2. Now, as I said earlier, when you have something where in algebra you have a number and a letter joined together, just like there, there's actually a times there. When we put the numbers in, we have to bring that times out to see it, otherwise we get very confused. So 2p becomes 2 times negative 3, and 5q becomes 5 times q is 2. 2 times 3 is 6, plus times a minus, hopefully you will have learned, is a minus. If the signs, when you're multiplying or dividing, if the signs are different, the answer is negative. If the signs are the same, the answer is positive. Here, plus, minus, they're different, the answer is negative. And here, they're the same, they're both positive. So this is saying you're at negative 6 on your number line, and you're rising 10. So negative 6 is going to be down there, you're going to go up 10, you're going to end up, that's basically the same as 10 take away 6. You're going to end up at 4. So 1 mark for correctly getting that negative 6 out, 1 mark for your answer. Question 10. Excuse me. So the sketch shows a triangular plot of land with a church marked C, a school marked S, and a bus stop marked B. The actual straight line distances between these places are also shown in the diagram. Using a scale of 1 centimetre to represent 25 metres, construct a scale drawing of the plot of land. Now this paper has been reduced, I'm hoping it'll fit, but it might not fit. So if that's it in real life, this is saying that on the page it's going to be 25 times smaller. So you've got to do 300 divided by 25, that divided by 25, and that divided by 25. So 300 divided by 25, 25 goes into 100 4 times, so that's going to be 3 times 4 is 12, so that one's going to be 12 centimeters. That one's going to be 4, 8, 10 centimeters, and this one is going to be 8 centimeters. Okay, so that's dividing by that. Now, let's start off with the SB. So SB is going to be 12 centimeters. So if I draw that down here, so hopefully you can see it's going to go from 0 there to 12 there. So that's SB. that's B. Now the problem is that they're not giving us any angles, so we don't know where to put C. So the way that we have to do this is using a compass. And first of all, we want to work out where C is going to be from S. It's going to be 8 centimeters from S. So you take your compass, and you open your compass out to 8 centimeters. Okay, so not easy to do this under the camera. Okay, so we're going to open that out to 8 centimeters. Just do it a bit more carefully. Put your compass point on S and draw part of a curve. Now everywhere on that curve is going to be 8 centimeters from S. So C is somewhere on that curve. Now in order to decide exactly where it is, I need to find 10 centimeters from B. So we go back to the ruler. We now open our compass out to 10 centimeters. Put the compass point on B and draw another part of a circle. Everywhere on this circle is 10 centimeters away from B. So where the two part circles cross, there is going to be both 8 centimeters from S and 10 centimeters from B. So that point there is where C is. So if we just draw it, and then we can show that we're right. So that line should be 8 centimeters. It is. And that side should be 10 centimeters, and it is. So that's how you draw a triangle like that where you aren't given any angles. So you're going to have 1 mark there for correctly using the scale, 1 mark for correctly locating it, the point C, and 1 mark for completing the triangle. So the total for that page is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And if we get all of that right, then we're in the C zone.